All right, coaches, parents, athletes, we're back with another episode of the CoachSpiration series, and I'm pumped today because I've got my good friend and colleague and someone who's become a partner in a lot of ways with PFP, Ryan Defibaugh, owner of MBS Performance Counseling, sports psychology, athlete mental counseling. I really like to define them more by what they do. They literally transform athletes' mindsets, thoughts, so that they can step into the athletes they were created to be. And we got a lot to talk about today, but I want to kick it off with something that maybe I've never heard before about you. I want like a story from either back in your playing days, back in your coaching days. We'll get into like what you do and your resume and all that kind of stuff so that people get an idea of who you are. But like, do you have anything that comes to mind from a standpoint of just like a story back in your, again, playing days or coaching days early on?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here, Andrew.
For sure, dude.
I'm thrilled to have these conversations with you and always come away inspired and learning. So, and that's the whole point of these conversations is learning and picking up from each other. But stories, I've got one too many. I'm a storyteller, I feel, in a way.
Well, when you coach and you work with athletes all the time, there's all sorts of stories, right? You work with kids as young as 10 years old, 11 years old, helping them with mindset all the way up through college. So you get lots of stories coming at you all the time.
Yeah, well, one that stands out to me, though, if I was to really think through it, and especially tying into what we'll talk about today with identity and as an athlete, comes down to when I just finished playing college sports. So it was literally the day we played our last game as seniors. I was a soccer player in college. And we're having a cookout with the parents and all of our other seniors, and one of the parents turns to us and says, "Guys, like that's your last soccer game, right? Like, what are you gonna do now? You've been playing soccer your whole lives. Now what? Are you gonna be all right?" And right away, my roommate Vinny turns to them. He goes, "We'll be fine." He goes, "I'm glad it's been a long run. We'll be fine."
Right.
And he pauses and he looks over at me and goes, "Ryan, though, you might want to check on Ryan. He loved this game a little bit more than the rest of us."
Oh, okay.
And I paused, right? And I'm like, is that a compliment or not? Right? And I took offense a little bit. I was like, I'm a well-rounded person, right? I'm a biology major. I'm going to exercise science. Like, I played the game, yes, but I played other sports. I'm well-rounded, right?
It's too funny.
And then fast forward to now.
All these years, and now you're
I've
helping
coached
athletes with their identity.
I coached 12 years of college soccer. I coached club soccer. My kids play soccer. I still played after college a little bit. Now I'm working in athletics still with the mental, emotional side. Vinny was right. Right? Sometimes people that know you know more about you than you do.
That's right.
And I didn't realize how tied into sport, but especially soccer, my identity was at that time.
Yep.
And it did take a little bit of work to move through that and understand of myself as not just a soccer player, that being the central aspect of who I am.
Yep. So, okay, so we're going to talk about, you just wrote a pretty significantly sized workbook that's going to help athletes and sports teams, right, with their mindset. We're going to talk about that in a little bit because there's a lot of nuggets in there that you share in the book, that just stuff you've learned over the years that has really been transformative for athletes, and you'll be able to share hopefully a little bit of that today, right? Give them a sneak peek of what's in there.
Definitely.
So we'll get to that eventually, but I kind of want to go like back to just like the kind of the origin story of MBS, right? Because it's a unique story on how that came about. It's not like that's your full-time job right now, even though you put in full-time energy and effort into it, right? Helping these athletes, it's your passion now. But share a little bit about like what you were doing when MBS came about professionally, and even what you're doing today, and then how MBS kind of tied into all that.
Yeah, it wasn't something that I went to school for and planned for and had in my mind, which is where I love talking to young people about. Sometimes life opens up to you when you just keep taking steps forward.
That's right.
And looking left and right and realizing how some of the things you're currently doing could tie into other directions. So I was actually at Penn State University. I was an assistant coach with the men's team at the time. And I was good friends with the women's coaches, and they had brought in a sports psychologist to work with their team. I didn't really know what that meant at the time. You know,
no one did back then.
Yeah,
this was, I mean, not that you're that old, but this was what?
Yeah,
2000?
2006.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and the interesting part was I went to pull something off the printer that I had printed out, and I saw some of the materials that the sports psychologist printed out for the team.
Interesting. And
reading just some of the quick hitting questions that they were going to ask on day one, I was like, "Oh, this is really interesting stuff. This is stuff that's going to like really delve into the why of the athlete and kind of that purpose and that drive and that motivation." I was like, "I like it."
Do you remember any of the questions?
I don't know. I can remember
you can see the
I can see the worksheet, right?
Yeah.
I can see it was like a little checkbox, and then there was a rating scale and different things on there, and I can see it. But it just, that was my first, like, I guess the seed was planted.
Yeah.
I didn't walk away that day going, I'm going to do that.
Right.
It was just like, wow, that's really interesting. Probably a few months later, working with a team, I started paying more attention, right, to our athletes and some of the things going on. And even at that high level, seeing how their performance was affected by stuff on the field, off the field, pressure, expectations. And a lot of times they'd come into our office about the expectations we had on them that we didn't even have, right? So the perceived expectations and how it was like interfering with their performance.
Right.
And as we had more conversations around that and freed them up from those, I could see weights lift off their back and see their performance rise. And I went, wow, there really is something to this piece, whether it's just the pressures they felt on the field, but then those conversations also led to things they were doing off the field.
That goes so far beyond, sorry to interrupt you, but it goes so far beyond sports psychology too, because I know that you're not defined as a sports psychologist. You're really defined in a lot of other ways. Like you can't just put one for what you do because it's so holistic. But like just that idea of like what you just said, like perceived expectations that weren't even true, opening up a two-way communication between athlete and coach or athlete and therapist, athlete and counselor, whatever, and how that by itself, right? Like that's not sports psychology. That's just like human connection, and that's the emotional side. Yeah. So anyway, keep going.
No,
that was awesome.
It's exactly what you said. We stopped coaching the athlete and started coaching the person, right? And started connecting to them as humans and saying, "Oh, I know his girlfriend just broke up with him 2 days ago. We should probably check in with him on that."
You mean you don't tell athletes just to suck it up and it's not a big deal?
No, I actually just got back from the United Soccer Coaches Convention and presented there, and I opened up the talk with like, our athletes are not immune to the human condition, meaning they have emotions, they have feelings, but we often ask them not to. Yeah. We often ask them to suck it up, deal with it, fake it till you make it, right? All these different things we learned along the way, right? That emotion's weakness, that fear is weakness, and we tell them to be fearless, and it's just not the message that works, right? Because we can ignore it, we can suppress things for so long, but they're going to come back.
That's right.
And they're going to come back stronger and harder. But yeah, going back to that origin story, like, yeah, it was, and those conversations started growing and growing, and I realized that was probably more of my strength than the coaching. And I started realizing what made me a decent coach was the fact that I cared about the athletes I coached, and the man managing was a lot more of my strength than the X's and O's. Even though I loved the tactics of it, I felt I was decent at that. I felt what really helped me along the way was the connections I was willing to make. And so when we had a head coaching change at Penn State, that's when I could have stayed on with the new coach. I had some offers kind of at Midwest, some big universities out Midwest and even further from home. And I grew up in Maryland, and I kind of had that talk to myself of, where do I want to go with this? Do I want coaching to be my livelihood? If so, like UNLV, Nebraska, some of these schools that I could have gone to. And I said, I don't want to move that far away from family and be that far away and kind of isolate myself out there. Well, what do I want to do? Where is that passion that would, that I want to put my energy towards? And that's when I said, maybe this is the time. Maybe this is that moment that has been given to me that for a purposeful transition, right? And so can I
and what year
use
we
this
talking,
time?
Right?
This would have been 2011, 12.
Okay.
And so that's when I decided, you know what, I'm going to go back to Maryland. I'm going to start my master's in counseling. I started with school counseling, knowing I was also going to go into the mental health side as well. and completed a program at McDaniel College in school counseling. Continued on with the mental health side of it and got my licensure. So I'm a licensed counselor in the state of Maryland. I'm a nationally certified counselor and a certified school counselor, and started working at the high school, Walkersville High School in Frederick. And while I was doing that, I started building the plans for MBS. So like I always look back and say all the dots connected for me in my life, but I didn't know it until the last one connected, if that makes sense.
That's totally
right. They seemed a lot of random dots in the moment, and then it went, ooh, here's how it all connects.
Yep. And now get us up to speed. So like the majority of people who are going to watch this are parents, and there's a lot of parents who are also coaches of their kids and of teams. And then there's a handful of coaches in our community too that that follow us so that they can learn how to be better coaches, right? Love-powered coaches, connect with the hearts, minds, and bodies of their players, right? All those things. So get us up to speed like today, where things are at, and then we'll start to get into like, I got some questions for you that might help parents, right, with their athletes and coaches and whatnot. So now where are we at today?
Today, so...
How many athletes you work with? You've got a couple of other athlete mental health counselors on your team now. So like get us up to speed with where things are at
so
right
we've
now.
partnered with a couple local colleges. So we work a lot with, we have a few professional clients. We work a lot with college-age athletes, a lot with high school-age athletes. We started working with FCPS schools as well and getting in and working with teams and individuals there. And then also have some middle school athletes. And like you said, my youngest athletes have been in that 10 range. So we do encompass a pretty wide age range. We also hired 2 other counselors, one other counselor and 1 sports psychologist. So now we have a team of 3 working under MBS Performance Counseling. And from the FCPS route, I'm no longer in the schools. I've taken a job as a coordinator of school counseling, so I oversee the school counselors and support them from all levels, elementary, middle, and high.
And you've got a family, a wife, and how many kids again?
3 kids.
3 kids.
So we have a 11-year-old and 6-year-old twins who are about to turn 7. And then my wife, who's a teacher in Frederick County too. So we stay busy. We're always on sports fields ourselves. Coaching the twins in their basketball stuff on Saturdays now, and probably gonna get start coaching the oldest in soccer a little bit now that he's reached a little bit older age. I kind of specialize more in the older coaching ages since I've spent so much time in college, and then when I coached club, it was middle school and high school mainly.
Right.
So now that he's getting to that age, I'm gonna probably step in a little bit and help out there.
That's good.
So.
And what are some of the things that you think about before you step into that territory, right? Knowing what you now know, and you've had all these conversations with athletes who probably have parents who try to be coach a little too much and maybe not in the best ways. Again, our community is like, people have read the Youth Truth, like they understand, like I want to, like if I'm going to be my kid's coach, I want to do it the right way, but I don't know how because there's no one teaching me how to do it. What are like some tricks and tips that you're like thinking about using before you step into that territory that would be helpful for parents?
I'd say parents, one of the hardest things to do is wear multiple hats, right? And so when we don't have a conversation around that with our kid, or at least understand for ourselves what those multiple hats are, it can get tricky, right? For you as the parent, but then also for the kid, for the player. Is this mom talking to me, or is this coach talking to me, right? I experienced this at home myself. Like I said, I was a goalkeeper coach at Penn State. My son has just started playing goalkeeper, and I went to give him some tips in the backyard. He's like, yeah, I know. I went, dude, I've done this for a pretty long time at a pretty decent level. Like, I know what I'm talking about, but I'm dad. Right? I wasn't coach, and if I try to give some of the mindset tips to him, if I'm not purposeful about how I do it, I'm not his counselor, right? I'm dad. And so for him, you can see that like, hey, where are you coming at me from this?
So when he gives you that or gives off those vibes, are you taking that as a cue that he is non-verbally saying to you, I don't want you to be coach right now, I want you to be dad? Like, is that what he's communicating to you? Or is that...
Yeah, I believe so. And so we'll stop and have a conversation. Like, hey, how much do you want from me here? Do you are we in the backyard to play? Or are we in the backyard because you want tips on how to do this better?
So you just ask him.
So simple. And he said, I just want to play. I said, cool.
Let's do it.
And so
Oh, that's gold. I got to see what time this is. We're going to timestamp this so I can pull that part out.
Yeah, so
that's good.
So then it's my responsibility, not his,
Yep.
to shift how I'm approaching it, right? So then I take that breath and go, all right, cool, let me put a smile on my face and let's get silly and just play.
That's good.
And if he dives at something and he uses the wrong technique, I don't need to say a word. I could just, hey, good save, or oh, you almost got that one.
Right.
Okay, let me jump in now, and we just play. So we did have that conversation, and then as things move forward, I also asked, he asked me if I was going to coach him, and I said, do you want me to? Right? And we talked a little bit about what that would look like and what that means and how we have to kind of be purposeful.
And for context, share how old?
He's 11.
11.
Yeah.
Yep. That's big, man. That's such a simple thing, too. We could all do it. And I think that also gives, in that moment, too, it's in that moment, you can't correct him any more than he might correct you for doing things wrong, right? It's like you've already established the relationship. We're both equals playing here, right? It's not me coaching you. So, wow, that's good. Okay, more tips. What else you got for parents that might be coaching? Go ahead.
For parents that are coaching their kid.
Or that try to.
Yeah.
Too much.
Or that tried to. I think at times there's that initial conversation's good, but there's got to be check-in also, right? There's got to be check-in throughout, and we got to know when the coaching ends and when parenting picks up.
Mm-hmm. Do you recommend literally having two different hats, one that says coach, one that says dad?
I've joked about that, but yes, if you need that physical reminder.
Now that you're going to step into that space, I'll get you this.
Okay, I love it. There are counseling techniques with that. With, hey, I'm going to put my yellow hat on that stands for something as the counselor to client relationship, and the same kind of thing we can almost do with the parenting piece and the coaching, but also knowing, hey, when we get in that car on the way home, where do I want to be? Because that's where a lot of the gold comes or the damage comes. Right? It's like we're in that car and it's all of a sudden we're still getting at them as coach, or are we just stepping back and letting them kind of enjoy the fact that now they're transitioning. Now we're just, hey, do you want to get something to eat? Yeah. But knowing those little transitions in the day, those transitions in the season, but having those check-ins, hey, how are you doing? Right? Knowing that usually we're harder on our own kids when we coach than other people's kids. And our kids sometimes pick up on that. And if we don't check in and have conversations around that, we might be doing more harm than good sometimes without even knowing it.
So I don't know if you have an answer for this, but that just made me think of from a psychology standpoint, what is going on inside of the mind of the young man or woman, the kid, when they're getting this feeling that mom or dad is harder on me than they would be on any of my other teammates. Is there something that goes through the kid's mind that we need to be aware of, that we need to maybe pump the brakes on and recognize this is not good, right? It's not, or is it a good thing for your kid to know that you're going to be harder on them than on the other kids? Because I think there's something to that.
Right, and I say all this from someone who was coached by my dad very early on as well, and he had much higher expectations on me than anybody else, and not from a performance playing standpoint, but from a stay focused, behave, do the right thing standpoint, right? Okay. And so if I was goofing around in the lines of practice, I was doing laps even if somebody else wasn't, right? Gotcha. And it was like, hey, I'm coaching here and you are my kid and you are interfering with this, take a run. And so what's going on inside the mind of our kids, the same thing that's going on in the mind of us often, right? When we talk about the cognitive distortions, the faulty thinkings, right away our kids are trying to make sense of the world around them all the time, just like all of us are. And what's going on in their minds a lot of times is they might not know why you're being harder on them.
That's good.
You might not even be being harder on them. This is the tough part. But their perception is you are. And perception is truth. Perception is reality to that individual, to your kid. So if they think it's true to them, and it brings real emotion, real feelings, and real follow-up thoughts. And so one of the faulty thinking patterns is the fallacy of fairness, and thinking this isn't fair. And once we go into that, then we start saying, well, they're just picking on me because, and we actually lose out on lessons because we're blaming outside and external situations and circumstances and external people. And then when we start blaming them, we see them as standing in the way of what we want. And we know when that kind of definition's put there, we can start getting some animosity towards that person, whether that's parent, coach, teammate, referee, any of that stuff. When we start saying, well, they're staying away of what I want, or they're making me feel this way, and they don't know they're doing this a lot of times.
Yeah. That's huge. That's what I was looking for, because that's like to know that is going on somewhere, whether it's conscious or subconsciously inside of the mind of the kid, is huge. So that conversation then, I don't know if your dad ever did this with you, but what does it look like? Is it like, hey, little Johnny, I just want to let you know, sometimes it might seem like I'm being harder on you than other kids, and here's why. Like, does it look like just a conversation of explaining yourself to your kids so that they don't have all those crazy thoughts going on and all these distortions going on in their mind? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah,
I know we're going down this deep rabbit hole of being hard on your kid.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that at least the parents that I talk to that are also coaches, like, they need help there. Yeah. Right? They need a lot of help there in coaching to figure out, how do I do this thing right?
Yeah, and I go back to intent a lot on that. It's like, if I stop and check into my intent, am I doing it because I think he's going to be a pro athlete and I'm pushing him beyond everybody else because he has to measure up to my expectations of becoming a pro or getting a college scholarship? Or is my intention like, hey, I'm trying to teach life lessons in here, and I'm going to make sure that I teach him where taking shortcuts just isn't going to work.
Right, the character development.
And you've got to work through this, and if you're going to do something, do it fully. And so I want to make sure that I'm not saying, oh, let them do whatever they want. And I also don't feel like we have to explain ourselves. I don't know if that's the terminology I would go with, I think sometimes, parents sometimes have to tell at different times.
Yep.
I do believe in, though, stopping and hearing them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not me saying, hey, Aiden, I'm doing this. Is that okay with you?
Right.
Right? But it might be, hey, I saw you were a little, disengaged at practice today when I was trying to, teach this skill to you, or I was correcting you there. What are you thinking? What was going on in your head?
Yep.
What were you feeling there? Right.
That's good.
I feel like other people made that mistake and you didn't jump on them. Okay. So you feel like I'm kind of singling you out there. Yeah. All right. Well, did you notice when I pulled Jimmy aside over here and was talking to him? Well, yeah. I was giving him a point there too. Right? So it's not just you. I'm sorry you feel that way, but I am also doing that. And I'll be a little bit more aware to make sure I'm not just jumped on you, but I am trying to give everybody the same feedback.
It's good.
Yeah.
That's where all of us, parents, coaches, we could all use a little bit of education around counseling, right? Or or therapists, right? How to just be a real active listen. It sounds like active listening to me, right?
That's a lot of counseling, right? And a lot of just
active listening,
parenting, especially as they get older.
Yeah.
If we constantly just tell them what they're supposed to think and feel,
right,
they never get comfortable, one, with how they think and feel. They're waiting for someone else to give them what they should think and what they should feel. And two, they don't develop the language to be able to explain it to somebody else or even to themselves.
Yeah.
And that's a lot what we do with NBS is we help them navigate that language. We help them stop and reflect and think, learn about themselves, internalize what's going on. Because at the end of the day, I want clients, I want kids, I want a society of youth that can, manage their internal selves to deal with the external bumps, right? The external is going to go up and down. Yep. You're going to have your good days and bad days. You're going to have your failures and your successes. Internally, can we stay more steady?
Yep.
And that's the goal then. To be able to do that, we have to understand how things make us feel, how they make us think, which thoughts are helping us, which ones aren't, and that we're allowed to challenge the ones that aren't being productive for us.
That's good.
So that's where these discussions, and if they don't have the language for it, how do you feel? I don't know.
Yep.
Right? I don't know is usually stop asking me, this is uncomfortable. It's not that they don't know.
Yep.
Usually they have an idea.
Yep.
They just don't want to have that conversation. So I love hearing I don't know. Because that goes, okay, well, let's sit on it for a little bit. Let's stop. And silence is gold. All right? We don't have to fill it. Because as much as you're uncomfortable as a parent with silence, your kid's a lot more uncomfortable with silence. And eventually, they'll come around, they'll start saying something, and they'll open that door for you.
There's a educator that talks about that as the white space, right? The white space between. I don't know if I can do that on this though. I got to keep talking. We gotta keep going. So that made me think of just what I'm seeing a lot of right now is, and a lot of parents, even when they bring their kids into PFP, for me, I've heard over the last couple of months consistently, my kid is becoming more and more scared to talk to people, scared to communicate to their coaches what they're feeling. A mom just shared with me the other day their daughter at gymnastics, her hip and her knee were killing her, and she was struggling. And then afterwards, after practice, mom was like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. She's like, my hip and my knee have been hurting really bad. Did you tell coach? No, I didn't know how to tell coach. Like, so I don't know what all this is about, right? I don't know if it goes deep into like kids with social media and always texting, like not knowing how to communicate anymore. Maybe there's a layer of fear. Are you seeing a lot of that now? Have you seen a lot of that? It's just an ongoing thing. And then maybe if we can get to like any, again, tips or how you work with kids through this fear of just communicating, right? Whether it's to the coach, parents, peer, that's another one I'm hearing, like scared to talk to teammates or meet new people.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, I mean, we could probably spend the next 10 hours going into fear specifically.
Is that what it's all rooted in, do you think?
I do. I think fear is definitely a deeper layer of things.
Right.
We actually look at like anger and some of these other emotions. They're really secondary emotions. Rarely does anger live without something underneath it. Mm. So usually there's a layer of fear, and we're so uncomfortable with fear that we see it as anger. Our society almost accepts anger more than fear.
Yep.
So hence the be fearless, all these kind of things. But yeah, when it comes to that, I'll start with the coach communication piece. I feel that is something that needs to be shared from the coaching angle, from the adult angle on day one. Mm-hmm. Right. So when I coach, we always had that opening meeting, right, before the season even started, for parents, for athletes, and even as young as 9, 10 years old,
right?
The athlete they have the words to communicate to you, right? Mm-hmm. And be able to say, like, here, if you're injured, here's how you can share this with me. If you're dealing with any mental, emotional, or anything else going on, here, I want to know that. I used to say to parents all the time, and this was in travel, kind of more select leagues, at high school when I got out of the college game at first, was I don't really want to have a conversation with you about playing time and position. Like, trust me, please. I do know what I'm talking about, and there's a reason, and I'm not going to pigeonhole anybody into one thing yet. They're still learning.
Yep.
But please bother me if there's ever anything to do with your son or daughter's like mental, physical, emotional well-being.
Yep.
And this is, again, before I even created MVS. It was, if your son or daughter is physically hurt, mentally struggling, emotionally struggling, let me know immediately. You could call me at midnight and let me know. Like, I care about your kids. I want them to be healthy young adults. And at the end of the day, soccer is secondary to them as people.
So ideally, the coach gets that conversation started. But what if they don't? Then what do you coach the parent or the athlete through?
What if they don't? I would then the parent can have that conversation with their kid as well. It's like, hey, you as an athlete, it's just one thing you do in your life. It's not who you are. I think that's a big piece of more and more kids playing a year-long sport. Yeah. Being talked to about college at a younger and younger age, about playing in college. It's wild. They start to see themselves as, I am a baseball player, I am a lacrosse player, I'm a soccer player. And that's dangerous in a way, because when something doesn't go well in their sport, it doesn't go well for them as a human being, because that's who they are. Yep. And when something does go well, so we talked about that roller coaster of external, it puts them on an internal roller coaster as well. Yeah. So we have to, especially athletes at higher and higher levels with more and more pressure, we have to have that conversation about their roles in life, who they are on a deeper level than just athlete. How do we take care of ourselves? How do we communicate care for ourselves? How do you tell me as a parent that, hey, I'm burnt out. I've been going for 14 days straight. I need a break. I'm tired. I'm feeling I'm falling behind in my schoolwork.
Yeah.
One of the latest stats that came out of the NCAA was I want to say it was over 33% of males and over 40% of female athletes from all divisions. So it's not just Division I where everyone says, well, they own you in Division I, and this is Division I, II, and III, say that they feel that they cannot deal with all that's on their plate. They feel so overwhelmed that they feel they can't deal with all the responsibility on their plate, from sport, social, academic. That's a huge number. Mm-hmm. You're talking 1 out of 3 on every team.
And that's the people that admit it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like bare minimum.
Yeah, so we know that number's higher.
Yeah.
And we know it doesn't just get created when they enter college.
Right.
These are feelings that they already have in middle, high, trying to manage everything.
For sure.
So back to the tips for parents is, again, that I think it starts with communication and saying, this can be hard, right? Being an athlete and pushing yourself to higher levels and playing for these teams and traveling, this can be hard.
Mm-hmm.
If you need a break, if you need a day off, if you're feeling like overwhelmed, come talk to me. Like, open up that door.
Yeah.
Because the kid themselves, without that permission, most probably won't. Because they're going to, again, internalize. They're going to try to make sense of it and go, well, no, I don't see anyone else having this discussion.
Right.
Ooh, there's something wrong with me because I can't handle it.
This
can't
is
admit
good,
this
man.
is wrong with me.
And I feel like this is like, okay, this is like a cut the tape moment. Not really, but this is like the moment that you, the parent, need to listen for your athlete. And I want you, honestly, to talk to the athlete, because these are like the moments where, I don't know about for you, but for me, like when I get a kid and I'm coaching a kid and I know that that's what they're feeling stuck, they're feeling like they can't, they're feeling trapped. Like that's when you don't know what happens next, right, with their mental health and where it goes. And some of the most impactful conversations I've had with kids are literally when I get them to talk to mom and dad, tell them how you're really feeling. Or go tell coach how you're really feeling. I want you to pick up the phone and call them right now. Like those are the moments that are like most impactful. So again, parents, like cut the tape type moment. This is when you want your kid to be listening instead of just you. What do you say to the kid right now who has the fear of sharing how they're really feeling? They don't know how to articulate it, and so therefore they say nothing. They're not telling their coaches how they feel. They're not telling their parents how they feel. They're keeping it bottled up. What do you coach them through?
Yeah, so we obviously build to this because it's about relationship and opening up these conversations. Mm-hmm. But one of the main messages I give them is, you are not broken. There's nothing wrong with you, right? These are natural human emotions, natural human thoughts of fear. We all have fears.
That's right.
Right? And you internalize that your teammate next to you, that your classmate, you internalize they don't have fears and you do, right? But we all do. Myself included, I teach this stuff on a daily basis, right? Coach Andrew included.
That's right.
He teaches this stuff on a daily basis, right? So it's not about being fearless. It's not about hiding from fear. It's about acknowledging it. And when we acknowledge it, we take the power of fear away. Right? Fear has power over us when we hide from it, when we ignore it, because when we don't confront it, we change how we behave because of it. When we turn and face fear and say, that's scary, I'm afraid of that, who can help me through this? How can I help myself through this? What do I need to do to confront that fear? Right? Now we're taking that power back and we're opening up options for ourselves. So where I recommend for athletes is, don't be fearless. Like that's not possible. Right? Be brave instead. Right? Bravery is facing that fear. Right? Bravery is acknowledging the fear and choosing that brave step next. So a lot what we'll do is we'll play the what if game. And we'll also play the worst case scenario game, right? Mm-hmm. So, okay, you don't want to tell your coach. What's the worst case scenario? Like, I keep playing through this injury or this pain, and it becomes more of a significant injury, then I'm not playing the sport that I love. How's that sound?
Yeah.
I don't really want that.
Right.
Okay, you do tell your coach. What's worst case scenario? They tell me to suck it up. Yeah. Okay, they tell you to suck it up. Whose issue is that to work through now? Like,
and don't they already do that anyway?
Yeah, right. Yeah, aren't we already feeling you already have determined that they're going to say that to you?
Yep.
In your mind,
you've already worked through it. That's
you've made up that that's what they think anyway. So we're in no different spot if they say that to you.
That's right.
But normally our brain goes to worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
This is how fear works for us. Our brains are geared for survival, right? That first and foremost, they want to survive. And so that's where fear comes in is, something's threatening that. And it doesn't matter if it's physical or emotional or athletic based or academic based. When we say, we go into that whole fight or flight, but our brain wants to start making up what could be possible because the unknown is scary. The unknown is scary for all of us. And for our youngest, they don't have the experience to tap into and say, I've been here before. I kind of know what to expect, until we help them through that.
Yeah.
And so that's where we come back to, hey, if I'm a parent and my son's injured and he doesn't want to tell coach, well, okay, we've talked about you need to reach out to coach. I'm scared too. Okay, well, I'll sit with you. I'm going to sit right here. But you're going to call them.
That's good.
All right, let's put them on the phone. We'll put them on speaker. You're going to say hello. You're going to tell them, I'm here for you. All right? But we're going to have this conversation together. But you're going to be the one doing it. And I'm here to support. So if the coach then is not doing the right thing, well, I'm here as a parent to help support you in that.
Yeah.
But I'm also empowering you so that you can do that yourself and see, I can have this conversation. Because once we have it once, it's a lot easier to have it the second time.
Yep.
And once we have it twice, generally we can kind of run with it.
Yeah, man. Oh, that was so good. And I think I want to, before we wrap this up and we just quickly hit on your book that's so important, it's like sometimes you can think my athlete would never be receptive to this kind of stuff because it seems like it's just so down and it's so so depressing. But honestly, couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
And I know that you've got your own way at MBS of bringing it back up to some joy and then going deep, and it's like that depth to joy bounce. But what do you say to the parent who's maybe a little hesitant, I know my kid needs something like MBS, I know they need some coaching, but I don't think they would be receptive to it. What's the truth? Because that's not the truth. I know that I've experienced it myself, but what is the truth?
I mean, remember we said the brain makes up.
That's right.
Makes up when faced with the unknown, the brain makes up its own story, and that's what we're doing as parents too. My kid would never do that, even though they need it. My kid would never. The truth is, you never know until you get into something, right?
Yep.
And most kids are going to be a little hesitant at first because they haven't been trained how to have conversations around thoughts and emotions, right? It's something that's just lacking in general in our society. But once we start having conversations around it, especially at that younger age where they haven't been so programmed by society of no, you got to be strong, you got to be stoic, you can't show any weakness. And they go, this is nice. Knowing that I'm not the only one that thinks this or feels this way. That's what I get most often after session one. So I get exactly what you said. Parents will set up for their athlete. My first question will be, does the athlete know you're setting this up? Or are you going to surprise them the day of? I generally ask the parents to have a conversation with them first if they haven't already about what this will be. And then the parent always says, well, I don't know if they're going to how they're going to react. I'm like, that's all right. That's what I'm used to, and that's part of being a professional in my area. Generally, by the end, I'm talking to the athlete and saying, so what do you think? Getting their feedback on the session, their takeaways from the session. I give them that permission too. Are you interested in a second one? I don't ask the parent if they're interested in a second one. I ask the athlete. And I give them permission from the beginning that they can tell me, I don't want to talk about this, I don't want to talk about that. They can, they have autonomy to stop part of the session and tell me where they want to go, right? Because I'm there for them, they're not there for me.
Yeah.
And so at the end, it's, would you like another session? I don't think I've ever had someone say no. And they have the permission to, right? And I go, okay, just tell me what stuck out to you where you think you can get benefits. We set goals out of that first session as well. And it's almost constant. It just helped to know that there's ways to talk about it. There's ways to help myself with how I'm thinking and feeling. Yeah. I always thought I just had to deal with it, but I can actually create my own emotions, create my own thoughts, and I can actually question if what I'm thinking is accurate, right? And we can practice that. And so I'm going to reverse just a little bit back to the parent with the coach on the phone. We can practice that same conversation before the coach is even involved, can't we? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of stuff we do in session all the time. It's like, okay, hey, I'm the coach.
Role play, yep.
Yeah, talk to me.
Yep.
What would you say? Does it have to be a 45-minute conversation? No, be honest. Let them know how you're doing. Boom. Okay, practice that. Let's practice it one more time. Great, let's make that call. All right? And we'll do the same thing, rehearsal for performance. Oh, you're nervous about going out on the field? Okay, well, let's visualize that. Can you picture the field? Cool, we're going out there. How are you feeling as you're getting out of the car and walking to the field? Okay, you're nervous. Okay, what can you say to yourself to acknowledge that nervousness, but then remind yourself that you're ready? Hey, I prepared for this. I practiced for this. I got this. Yeah. Right? And so we practice that self-talk, that visualization, that rehearsal, and that piece. But the truth that comes down to it is once you have these conversations with coaches, with parents, with your athletes, most people walk away going, ooh, it's just opened up a whole nother level of my thinking that I'm allowed to actually delve into this world.
That's good. Yeah, I would also just add to that, if you catch your kid in the moment where there's an emotionally charged situation, that's probably not the best time to pitch this kind of thing, right? When you go to them where everything's all good, right? There's not a bunch of conflict that just happened. It's not immediately after a bad game. That's when you don't want to do this, right? Because everybody would say no. It's a time where there's just trust, right? Because your kid trusts you, right? You're their parent, and most of the time, the things you recommend for them, they're gonna at least listen to. But yeah, as far as what a kid feels after a session, we all return to feelings, right? If something felt good, a lot of the times we'll return to it. If it felt bad, we'll run away from it. You're right. These sessions, everybody feels better after they get stuff off their chest, after they feel heard, and then if you got a little bit of life tips and some coaching on top of it, then it's all right, I want more of that, right? It wasn't just that was good, that was great, give me more. And I know that's what you guys do at MBS. Let's give a quick high-level overview of the book, even though we really just dove into a lot of your heart of it, right? I mean, the heart behind it. But who is this book for, and what will it help with?
Yeah, so the book is Perform with Purpose. It's mental health mental performance workbook for athletes.
Yep.
So it's written directly to the athlete. It's really, the language to it is for the athlete to read and take in and work through things. But parents, coaches, they can get a lot of value out of it too. So basically it's built around our 4 pillars. So self-discovery, learning who we are as individuals and what drives us, what motivates us, why we're out on that field. So it's not somebody else's passion or motivation we're living. It's how do we encompass our own. Everything from, like I said, values and roles we play to our deeper purpose and why. So that's the self-discovery piece. I'm a firm believer in positive psychology. So pillar 2 is how to utilize optimism, resilience, grit, gratitude.
Nice.
Tying that into focusing on the process over the result. So how do we get somewhere instead of just, I have to get there. And so that's pillar 2. Pillar 3 is the barriers to performance and really understanding what those are. I call those snags, the things that hold us back, the faulty thinkings, the fear, and those pieces. And then pillar 4 is about building your daily performance plan. How do you wake up in the morning purposefully and using kind of that visualization, self-talk, and narration? How do you go to bed at night in the proper ways to prepare yourself for the next day and reflect on what's gone well and what hasn't gone well, with purpose and reason at the end of the night, and then dealing with the transitions and everything else in between, and understanding when am I at my best and how can I replicate the things within my control most often. All right, so it's really empowering about how we go into the day. So it's not, I hope today's well. It's, here's what today is going to be. And then also tying that into on the field and off the field strategies and tips. It's kind of introductory and then worksheets. And then at the end, there's about 6 months of reflection pages just for the athlete to be able to go through personal reflections and performance reflections. And monthly and weekly reflections.
And journal and get that stuff on paper. Dude, I looked at this thing it's loaded, in a good way.
Thank you.
And I feel like there almost will need to be some parents will need to be coached on how to, if they're the ones getting it for their kid, it's like how to help their kid through it, because you can't possibly like just go through this thing front to back in 3 weeks, right? Like
No.
It's like each piece of it is like a habit that is like a cornerstone habit to a kid's overall success in life, joy, positivity, all these things, right? So they take time. Do you have any like tips on how to go through it? Like one section and then wait a month before you go, like, how do you get through this thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those you could go through it and then come back and kind of go through it slowly
approach, right?
next. But yeah, what the goal is too is we're creating a Perform with Purpose community also.
Yeah, okay.
And so where we'll post videos about each lesson, each area, each pillar. We'll have question and answer. We're going to be offering like monthly like Zoom meetings as well.
And where's this going to be?
This will be on our website.
Nice.
So that will be released when the book's released as well, which should be in the next week and a half.
Yep.
We're just finishing up some final formatting pieces, and it'll be on shelves and on Amazon and all those other areas where you find books.
Yeah,
but yeah, really excited about it. What we're finding is a lot of the one-on-one work we're doing, we're passionate about and we love, and we want to be able to get more of those conversations to athletes and parents and coaches. And then, the other piece is creating that community where it's like these conversations can be had. Mm-hmm. And not only can they be had, but they're valued, and we can learn from each other, bounce ideas off each other. As I said, I just got back from the coaches convention, the soccer coaches convention. This has everything from youth coaches to college to pro, people, just thought leaders in speed and agility and sports psychology and coaching and tactics and creating teams. And when you have these conversations and you're in the room with these people and everyone's sharing and learning, and it's so exciting. And when we can create those spaces for our kids as well in areas that they don't normally get a space to talk about, which is what you're doing here as well, which little plug, my son also attends PFP. But he loves it, and he comes home every day talking about or every time he's here, talking about that relationship with, he works out a lot with Alec, and he just loves the conversations, and then he comes back feeling stronger from the exercises, and now we have areas in our basement where we'll get out together and he'll show me what he's learning. And the more we have conversations, the more we show kids how to strengthen themselves mentally, emotionally, and physically, the more then they want to go talk about that as well. And when we have that community sharing that, it just becomes more and more powerful. So this has been a passion and on my mind for a long time about how we open up these conversations more and get this information out to more and more people. And so this workbook has been a couple years in the work.
Labor of love.
But it's exciting, and it's something I never really thought years ago that I would even be taking on.
Right.
But again, sometimes life shows you a doorway, and your job's to take that first step through it and move forward and keep moving forward on those things that are calling you. And so I'm excited to get it out. I'm excited to work with athletes through it. We're going to be partnering with some clubs as well to get it out to teams and come in and do presentations that way as well. So, I mean, there's all kinds of ways that we can learn to work through it. But if nothing else, they are introductory type lessons. So if an athlete took one at a time and just kind of went through it and said, hey, each week I'm going to read another section, or each month I'm going to read another section, I'm going to spend a month kind of going through each one, they would get value out of it.
Dude, that's what I love about you. I'm not going to look at you and get all sappy, but seriously, this guy works a full-time demanding job, and you can just hear his heart. He gives, and gives some more, and then goes and writes a book on top of it as if you weren't busy enough. And it's for the sole purpose, I know you, for the sole purpose of saving a life potentially, inspiring a life, helping a kid have a better future than they would have otherwise, so that they can know how to share their thoughts and emotions and feelings and have better relationships. It goes so many layers deep for you, and you just keep doing these things. You're at a convention this past weekend, speaking away from your family, and it's you don't get rich in this industry, right? In this industry of coaching and serving like this, it's all about the purpose, perform with purpose. So I'm pumped for the book to come out. Since it's not out yet, can they go to your website to get on a list to be able to get the book on your mailing list? How do they get in touch with you? What's the best way?
We do have a page up on our website now.
Nice.
You'll see the cover and those kind of pieces, and a little blurb about what's inside the workbook.
Okay. Is that MBS?
That's mbsperformancecounseling.com. And so from there's not like a pre-order. I guess you actually could. I think the link's live already. You could click on it, but then you'd be paying for it already. Which
go try it. I mean,
whatever.
Try it.
It's working, but I will look to see if I can get a pre-order list going. But right now, I think it's going to be ready in the next week.
Yeah, perfect.
Anyway, so.
So by the time you're seeing this, it might be out there. Yep,
it should be out there and ready to go. But there's a page on our website under our what we offer, our counseling services, and one of those is the Perform with Purpose workbook. We also have an online course if someone's more so about
video
seeing
content and
the
learning.
video side versus the reading side.
Yep.
But yeah, so it'll be out there, and I always say once I work with you once, I'm a resource for life.
Nice.
So if you get the workbook and you have a question, my email, my cell phone, like all that's right on the website. You can text me, you can email me, you can reach out. I'm very hands-on with the business and very hands-on with the counseling, obviously.
Yeah.
It hits home, right, when I'm out in Philadelphia at this convention, and after I speak, there's a line of about 20 people wanting to come up and share either their mental health journey or ask questions about their athletes' mental health journeys and how they can be a supporter of that. And then the last person in line comes up, and big beard, and he goes, "Brian." I go, "Hey, I'm kind of like doing one of these," and he goes, "Matt," and he was our student manager at Penn State. What year are we in now? 2023, and this would have been 12, 13 years ago. And he didn't have a beard back then. That's why I was kind of peering. I go, "Oh my goodness!" He goes, "Hey, I heard you're presenting. I wanted to come and see you." And he goes, "I've been like delving into all your content you put online, what you post on social media, and we use it with our athletes all the time." He goes, "I wanted to tell you though, like I got into coaching because of the relationship you and I developed while I was a manager and you were an assistant coach, and how much time you spent with me and talking to me and explaining why you all are doing this drill or that drill, and just letting me know some of the you were doing a lot of the mental emotional stuff back then, even if you didn't mean to." I'm like, "Yeah, I was just talking about that." And we walked away just kind of texting with each other later that night about how like I can come support teams that he's working with. And it's like, that's why you do it, right? Not for any other aspect, but knowing that you're touching a life at some point. How are you touching that?
Yep.
Are you more focused on winning that championship or pushing this kid to try to get this scholarship, or are you worried about developing strong young men, young women who are going to give back to the next generation as well? Mm-hmm. And that's how we strengthen a society, by one at a time, who then goes one at a time, and we grow in that way. And so that just like really brought it like that weekend full circle to me, saying, yeah, this is exactly why I do it. This is what brings the smile to my face. Keep going. Like that's the stuff that recharges me, right?
Amen.
So no matter how busy you are and tired you are, it's that stuff that says, this is why, and I'll keep going.
Yep. Dude, I love it. This was awesome. Guys, grab the workbook, Perform with Purpose, website, mbsperformancecounseling.com. We'll have it in all the notes below. And social media, you guys are on MBS Performance Counseling, Instagram, Facebook. I know you guys are there.
Yep.
And parents, coaches, it's not easy what we do every day. Go back and listen to this again for all those tips for how you can be a more supportive coach, supportive sports parent. Man, awesome stuff. Awesome stuff, guys. We'll see you on the next episode of CoachSpiration. Go out there, change some lives. Peace.